All right, welcome. It is Geographically Challenged episode 62, and we're going to jump straight into it. It's not going to be a super long one, I'll just tell you that, because there's not a whole lot happening. Obviously, player break involved and stuff like that. But we've brought in some international esports Counter-Strike superstars, Bleh and Mac. No Pilski today. He's busy, apparently. But Mac, you're back. You're my mate, and you're back. How are you?
It's been a hot minute. I've been watching them all. You've had some great conversations, and then when I watch it, because sometimes I'll miss it going live. I watch it like 10 minutes delayed, and I still want to type in the live chat, and I'm like, and I have an opinion on something. And I'm like, there's no point. There's just no.
No, we get that a lot actually.
People
are like, oh, is this live? And I always have to say, no, it's pre-recorded, but going out on Premiere, whatever. A bit of a debate, but anyway, those that know. And speaking of, we should talk about Mongolz at Jönköping, because obviously that was, I would say that was the tournament that we were like leading into in that previous episode, and we were sort of hoping that this was going to, push Mongolz over the line, maybe to get into the top 10 in the overall rankings or the HLTV rankings. And obviously, we know that pretty much didn't happen. They didn't really quite perform at that event. So 5th, 6th for the Mongolz there. I don't know if that was necessarily the result that we were all hoping for. And I think generally speaking, like going into that, most people were looking at them as being the favorites, and they kind of just bombed out. So I don't know. Is it fair to say that they bombed out, or is this kind of like a regression back to the mean for Asian CS for the Mongolz? Because like you look at that, and 12 months ago, you'd be like, well, that was okay. That was kind of in line with expectations for Asia. But at least for the Mongolz, where they stand now, it's kind of like, actually, that was a pretty disappointing result as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's them regressing back to any any mean, so to speak. I think yes, they absolutely bombed out. They won their opening game against. Wait, let me take the
Party Astronauts.
An easy one. Party Astronauts, right? They got business done with. The Aurora game was reasonably close, right? Again, it's a game they should have won, but you can be like best to one, yada yada yada. And against Falcons game, it was Madden having, I think, the best game I've seen from him in years, actually. Kind of almost like a life game, seemingly. But even despite that, yeah, it's still a disappointment from Mongolz. I feel like against Falcons in the best of 3, it did feel like Snappy had them figured out a few times here and there, and they didn't quite have a reply. Now, this could be exhaustion. Again, I'm giving excuses here, right? This could be exhaustion. They've been on the road for a while and all of that. But despite all of that, looking at the field of teams they were facing off against her, compared to in Yala, where it was like fucking NIP playing lights out, with Astralis looking pretty solid, it is a disappointment. And it does definitely, make a lot of people will be like, oh my God, they're definitely top 10, they're top 8 right now. Well, how do you like them apples?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for me, like, I actually do think it's fairly relevant to talk about that fatigue factor, and I know that this is obviously a conversation that happens around a lot of teams, and at the tier 1 level of Counter-Strike, you kind of need to be dealing with that. But for the Mongolz, I'm not sure that this is factor that's like just completely irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking about it from the perspective that I was at the Mesa event, so I was in Mongolia. So this is where they started their run of events. I was there, I did that Mesa event, and then from there directly I went to China afterwards. And when I was working in China on a PUBG gig, they were playing at the Yala event. So that was like back-to-back weekends. And then the next weekend after that was when they went over to Jönköping, and that was the week that I had just come home. And I was like, man, I'm fucking owned. Like, I'm blitzed. And I hadn't even changed time zones or anything like that, so I can kind of get it, right? Like 3 weeks in a row, you're flying all over the world, you're playing these events, whatever. Like, I can definitely see that there's that fatigue factor that can come into play for these guys, but I don't know, is that an excuse? Maybe not. What can you really say about this? Because like at a certain point, we were like obviously super excited to say, yeah, Mongolz are sort of making this happen. They're flying the flag for Asia Counter-Strike. I would like to consider this maybe just a bit of a blip in the radar. I'd like to just say, okay, well, they're not going to win every event. They're not going to perform at every event. People need to kind of take that and just be aware that the bandwagon at the moment is very strong. Like you can jump on that bandwagon and be like, they're the best. They're going to this and that and whatever. But like, let's just like take a step back and realize like this is still a developing team. Like this is not a team that's like locked themselves in at tier 1, or they're not, like at their peak form or anything like that just yet. I think they definitely still have levels at which they can grow and become a better team. So they are going to need to kind of have these challenges. So I don't know that anyone was like necessarily too like, I actually think the response to it was fine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone really got up in their grill or anything like that. I think people were just like, oh, okay, that kind of fucking sucked. But oh well, you know what I mean? And so move on, and obviously on to bigger and better things, I think, for the Mongolz here, because like there's a lot of big stuff coming up for them, and you know, we can talk about it, like obviously Esports World Cup, Sky Esports Championship, they've got Cologne, they've got ESL Pro League as well, so in, you know, the next probably 2-3 months, we're going to have forgotten about ESL Challenger Jönköping, and you know, we'll probably still remember Essa and Yala because they won those events, but I would like to hope that this is just going to be like a small hurdle that they fell over a little bit, but you know, they'll get up and hit the ground running. In saying that, though, obviously Esports World Cup is going to be a pretty tough gig. I think there's a lot of good teams at that event. Sky Esports Championship definitely looks a little bit more winnable, or at least, you know, they can perform well at that one. But of those 4 upcoming events, 3 of them are going to be really, really tough, I think, on the Mongolz. So, what are your thoughts, Mac? I mean, obviously, you know, you have some degree of interest in the Mongolz as well. So, where do you think they're at the moment?
Well, the first thing I'm looking at is just that best of 1 against Aurora, and Blitz not only underperformed, but when Deco's going plus 14 in a best of 1, like that's a bit of an issue for Mongolz. And look, Aurora, we've seen them here in Australia play. You know that they can be a very good team, but they're a little bit inconsistent. And I feel like they played the consistent side of Aurora in that best of 1, which put them up against Falcons. And the thing about Falcons is, of course, they're starting to work now. You know, they might have a roster swap going through this player break. I'm not sure if they are going to commit to that or not, but the fact that they're starting to get a couple of wins, you know, starting to look a little bit more like a contender in Europe, then maybe just let that one play out going in towards that second major of the year. You know what I mean? When the first major of the year, you saw everything went wrong for them. It's a rough one. But so I'm not saying it's like Mongol's fault. Maybe Blitz underperformed this event. Like he didn't have too many great games there from what I'm looking at the stats. The problem with me for this one is I was paying a lot of attention to Blast, because that's the issue when you're having like Blast and ESL Challenger on the exact same weekend. There's a lot going on, and that was with the Monacy flying in, flying out straight away. So there was a lot of funny storylines, and there was a lot of crazy Counter-Strike on that weekend. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see too much Mongolz, so I only have the stats to go off. But grand scheme, yeah, I feel like Mongolz. I'll have my take on that whole Mongolz are the 6th best team, whatever thing. I think that they can break top 10, but I feel like it's just going to be a little while away. You know, they just need to find that consistency. The fact that they're losing to teams that are in the top 20, not even towards that top 10, means there still needs to be that level of consistency. And yeah, they were trending upwards, but it's the same thing for Mongolz moving into the second major of the year. Is they have a lot of competitions, which you already named, leading up to that second major. And this is where they need to start to shine and figure out what they need to do at the top end. The game's also slightly changing. Everyone's going to be playing new Vertigo. Fuck that map, by the way. I want it out of the pool as soon as possible. I want a whole new map in. It just needs to happen at some point. And the state of the game is really hard to play. Like, it feels so dead right now during this player break because there is no professional Counter-Strike to watch. I'm so fucking bored. Like, yeah, I'm playing Thera and Mills, and matchmaking's back. But
and Rust.
The servers feel dog shit. Yeah, we're playing a little bit of Rust. That's why I'm playing Rust. Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to squeeze in here, right? Like, again, this is a bit of a tangent, but what Mac mentioned right there. I know we talk about Asian Counter-Strike and everything, but Jesus Christ, like, I'd taken a bit of a break, like 3 or 4 hours away from home. I had my birthday a few days ago. So I'm like, I'm going to take a break from everything. I'm going to go out and hang out and whatever. And I come back and I'm like, all right, Thera's out. Cool. I did play around the map a little bit, Santorini back in the day. And then, of course, the new map as well, Mills, right? I jump in and we're going to play it on, right? Unless I'm playing a 10-man with friends, I have to play it on a fucking matchmaking. Yeah. First game, cheater. Second game, cheater. I'm talking about blatant. Third game, cheater. I tried Singapore server. I tried everything possible. I played with Singapore friends of mine who added me to the lobby, and they were searching Singapore. I get pretty decent ping. Played there. India, doesn't matter where you're playing. It's like 6 games in a row of just cheaters. I couldn't play the maps. It is fucking unplayable right now. So yeah, I totally feel it there, Mac. But just want to add on to the topic at hand as well, like Mongolz, right? Here's my thing. You're a team right now on the on the rise. You're going to be grasping at every opportunity you get to perform, right? So while we can forgive maybe maybe getting a little bit tired, maybe a couple of players having bad games or whatever, but not making it to the playoffs of a challenger event where we are the big favorites is a bit worrying. You know, you don't want that to happen because the events you mentioned right there, Jordan, you got World Cup, right? You see some of the best teams out there in this event. Immediately after that, it's going to be Sky Esports, which I would kind of play something like a Yalla, but it's kind of like the weaker event they're going to be playing in the second season, and then immediately after that, you're going to be a week's gap. That's about it. But you're going to be flying straight into Cologne. You're going to be playing the Cologne play-ins, where if they get through, and I hope they do, they should be getting through into the main stage. And I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs, obviously. But if they have a reasonably deep run, then you have about a couple of weeks before you play EPL. That's a pretty fucking stacked schedule with a much more higher caliber of teams and events overall. So, if you're going to be tired after a couple of events, one in Mongolia and one in Abu Dhabi, and then completely shit the bed in Jönköping, buddy, you're in for a rough time. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to give too many excuses here. I believe, Jönköping was rough, they kind of shot the bed there, but wake the fuck up, guys. Like, this year is a golden opportunity, not only for yourselves, but for your region and Asian Counter-Strike overall, with the Shanghai Major happening, for you to really rise up the ladder as well. I have a lot of teams, a lot of tier 1 teams as well, as struggling with rosters and whatnot, right? So don't repeat this, because you're not going to get this sort of opportunity that often.
I mean, I guess the thing for me is, like, I will say I agree with what you're saying, but also they are definitely playing more this year than they did last year. Like, this has been their busiest year so far. Like, and sure. I think it's just going to be a bit of a transition period where, because they've now hit that point where they are in the top 20, top 15 comfortably, like very, very comfortably. They're going to be playing in a lot more of these events. Obviously, there are more events kind of just popping up, like this Yala, this Mesonomanic Masters, the Sky Esports Championship, these kinds of events. And that's obviously something that they're going to have to deal with going into 2025 as well. One would imagine that there's going to be more events like that sort of floating around. So I think it is a bit like, okay, I personally think you can give them a little bit of slack. Just say, okay, look, it was a very busy period. Let's be real, ESL Challenger for them is not the most important of events, right? So I think I'm happy to sort of just push it by the wayside. I would agree, though, that obviously if it becomes a bit more of a recurring theme, like, for example, if they would go into if they don't perform super well at Esports World Cup, I think, again, looking at the teams that are at that event, I'm not going to be super disappointed if they finish, maybe 5th to 8th, for example. That would be fine as far as I'm concerned. But if they would go Sky Esports Championship and maybe finish 5th to 8th in that would be where I start to now go, okay, that's now sort of like 2 of these like lower tier events where it's like, should really be in the top 4 that you haven't made it into the top. That starts to raise the questions. But as at the moment, it's just a one-off. I don't think I'm ready to really go too deep on it or necessarily get too hung up on it. The only obviously big downside to it, the only real sad part about it is that they don't manage to crack into the top 10. Still sitting at number 11 as of the recording of this episode. So a little bit disappointing. And I think it will be quite hard now for them going into these next couple of events to crack that top 10. Really, a lot of it is going to hinge on what happens at the Esports World Cup. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to find out. But look, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a big deal just yet. It's not a super big important tournament. And at the end of the day, everyone's going to have a failure somewhere. You're allowed to have a failure, and it's not a big deal. All right, and it's not like it's at the RMR or the major or something like that.
I feel like you're making a way bigger deal of it than it needs to be, because this was the most stacked challenger we've seen in a very long time. And going into next year, we still have this challenger format. We kind of don't know what next year's looking like. We just have the outline dates where tournaments are going to be, which is what tournament, who bloody knows. But we may end up seeing more stacked challenges moving into next year because of the way that the whole major pathway is going to happen. So that being said, that's a little tangent, but don't get too hung up on this. We have a player break. And you always know that some teams are going to get better through the player break and some teams are going to get worse. So we kind of just have to wait and see what happens after the play break.
Probably a good thing as well for them to eat a loss like that. You know what I mean? Like, because I think it would be very easy to kind of get swept up in that hype train a little bit if you're one of those players, right? Which has gone back to back, won a couple of events.
Asian team ever.
Yeah. And by the way, that like their fans in particular are going to be the ones that like, you guys are the fucking best. Love you. Obviously, the Mongolian fans are very passionate, very patriotic, let's just say. So they're going to be in that echo chamber, right? When they're reading like the Mongolian fan commentary and whatever. Although in saying that, I do know that the Mongolian fans can rip into them a little bit when they don't perform well as well. Like they're live by the sword, die by the sword.
That's classic fan base. That's how it is.
Yeah, but I think it's good to get that bit of a reality check, and be like, okay, well, we've been doing very well. There's no doubt about that. They have been doing very well. But reality check, like, we're still not up there maybe as consistently or as cleanly as we would want to be.
I think that's my biggest gripe with this challenger result is yes, it's pretty stacked overall, but we're looking at Mongolz. The discussion around Mongolz after Yalla, just immediately after Yalla, was that they can take down, or they can be the favorites reasonably so with a lot of teams outside of the top 10, right? Right now we have a question, can they beat Complexity, who are right above them in the rankings? Can they beat Astralis more consistently? Can they take down teams like VP more consistently? We're not even bringing in the top 5 teams or your phases, your Vitalities and Spirits and all these guys, right? So for us, the next step for this team was for them to be either very competitive against the top 6, 7 to the top 10, or beat them more in a more regular fashion. Instead, they completely capitulate against 2 teams who, they've been on the up, on the rise, but they should be beating on any time of the day. Now heading into the 4 events which we mentioned earlier, it's a much more higher caliber of opposition again, right? So that is worrying. That's because we do hold them to a higher standard, right? So I hope the fans don't bite their heads off of this, Jordan.
But you can't really ask for a much better run into the major at the end of the year. Like, let's be real, at the end of the day, if anyone's positioned from the Asia region to do well, it is the Mongolz. They are going to be getting lots and lots of tier 1 practice. There's not going to be any excuses at this point anymore for the Mongolz, right? This is the major. There's no, they're just an Asia team that's trying their best. Like, they are on the tier 1 circuit now. They are getting those opportunities that almost every other team is, and perhaps more than most other teams. Well, it has to be said. So then, it's the best opportunity they've got to perform well at the major, and we'll see how they go in Shanghai. But enough about the Mongolz. We'll jump on to a bit more of an interesting topic, actually, quite frankly, because Jönköping's a little bit of a, that's kind of old news, We're only talking about that because we haven't talked about it just yet. But the NKT roster that was announced, and I really don't know what to say about this one. Mac, I don't know, are you aware of this?
I haven't seen it.
The new Thai NKT roster? I can.
Wait, you haven't seen this?
I did see that. I actually am so about it. I'm so glad that Thai CS is back.
It's Rolex.
It might not
Genius.
be a good team, but it
might not be. Rolex, Genius, Myrolls, 789, and Zyvan.
Where is Kuntz? Where is KNTZ? Where is Kuntz? My favorite Thai player.
He's playing Valorant still, I think, right?
Fucking hell, what a cunt.
Maybe.
And Mac, your boy, what's his name? John Olsen's not there either.
Johnny
Olsen.
I think he's still on the top Valorant team in Thailand, or one of the top Valorant teams in Thailand at the moment.
Is Thailand? I mean, look, I follow a bit of Valorant in Asia, in APAC, because obviously a lot of our old Counter-Strike boys play there, but haven't really seen Talon do much recently. Are they very?
They have a
relevant
team. They have out of the tier 2 scenes, or whatever you call the challenges regions. They'd be up there. I think it's them and Indo are the favorites out of all of the teams and stuff. But right at the top, I can't remember what their team is, but it's not as good as the Korean teams and stuff.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah. As far as this team is concerned, do we have any hope that Thai CS is back? Because
yeah,
no.
Is the answer right there? Fuck no from you, Bleh, because that's kind of what I'm expecting.
Let's be real. All right, listen. I love these guys. I used to commentate their games on when they were coming up, when I was kind of coming up as well. That's why I have a little bit of an emotional connect. I love the Thai guys. But let's be fucking real. Southeast Asia, when it comes to Counter-Strike in particular, it's still struggling. Valorant is still very massive over there. It makes a lot of sense for them to stick with Valorant, right? It's more of an ecosystem. There's a big fan base as well. Even as just a streamer, even if you're not playing professionally, you can have a pretty solid living just doing that. It just makes sense. So for them coming back to CS2, as much as I love to see it, as much as I would love to see them do a bit of damage, it is kind of a new game. There are a lot of, look at the way the Mongolian teams play right now, right? I think the 5th or 6th best Mongolian team could easily beat them, in all honesty. I'll just put it out there, even some of the Chinese teams, right? So it's fun. It's a bit of a nostalgia jack-off session, but that's it.
Yeah. Look,
good bed.
What's extremely telling to me is the fact that they didn't even make a tweet. NKT did not even make a tweet at this roster.
Dude,
they made a Facebook post. But yeah, this is the thing. I've heard some not good things. I've heard some not good things about this org.
Go on.
Who was it? I don't know. It was maybe one of the Mongolian players, or maybe it was Zion. I'm not going to put names to it. I can't remember who it was.
Just says Zion.
No. I'm not saying that someone told me it. I don't know.
Jordan, you should never be a journalist, by the way, mate.
Yeah. Sure, I'm not. I've never claimed to be. Content creator only.
Go on.
From what I have heard, there has been difficulties getting paid from this NKT org. And I can't even remember who told me that. That's why I don't want to like put a name to it. If I would have had a name say, "Oh, this player was not paid," I can't actually say who it was that wasn't paid. I can't remember who it was. But from what I've heard, I think I might have been talking to Impression, which obviously is quite a while back now. He was in Mongolia, so maybe that's where it came from. Sorry, Impression, if it's not. But I don't think he gives a fuck really at this point whether or not NKT likes or doesn't like him, to be quite frank with you. But from what I've heard, and it's not just one instance, it's a couple of instances. I've heard that they're not great at paying their players, and they just ghosted them and stuff like that. And so it's like, what is going on with this org? I don't know. I believe it's a Thai. It's like a Thai owner, so maybe it's better if it's a Thai team, and then there's like that. I don't know, whatever, no cultural differences, or you can at least converse in the same language and work things out and figure things out, and it's easier or whatever. But what I will say is, I would go into this with some heavy degree of skepticism that we're actually going to see anything relevant from this. Not just because the players themselves are probably extremely washed and maybe aren't putting 100% into CS2 at this point, and maybe have only been picked up to play in like some IESF Thailand fucking representative tournament.
Oh yeah, okay.
And second, the organization itself has had some rather shady past. So we'll just leave it at that. I hope everything goes well, and I actually do really want to see Thai CS back, because there was a lot of good Thai teams for a while there. There was probably 3 or 4 competitive Thai teams that maybe weren't competitive in the sense that they would qualify for international events, but they were at least decent within Southeast Asia, and they could compete in these sort of like Asia qualifiers and stuff. So I think it would be cool to kind of see like maybe 1 or 2 of them back, just to have Thai teams back in the mix. But I don't know if it'll be this team. Hopefully, at least if nothing else, this team will maybe be a representative to the Thai players that are coming up, and they can say, "Oh, we've got something to aspire to." But that's probably the best that I would expect.
I don't like how Jordan's implying that the language barrier is going to help with the payment overall. I don't think it's that hard to say, "Hey, money, you owe me, give me." The guy's like, "Sorry, I don't understand you. Can't pay you up right now."
Was it Bentet? Did Bentet write a tweet? I can't remember.
Bentet could fucking speak 5 languages, dog. Like,
I can't remember, honestly. It was somebody in one of those previous NKT teams that they didn't get paid, or they had difficulty getting paid, or something like that.
I think Impression made a tweet about it. I think everyone kind of agreed on that. Yeah, that's a while ago. Anyway,
but yeah,
this team's not going to do shit.
Yeah, not great. Hope the best. I hope to see them in like some sort of Asia qualifier. You know what I mean? Like if I would
be cool.
What would I would like to see them in ESL Challenger League, for example. I think they should be able to make an ESL Challenger League.
There's not much in SCA.
If they can't make ESL Challenger League, that is a real indictment on the roster. Because there's some pretty fucking bad teams.
There are some really bad teams at the bottom of that.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Anyway, on a more positive note, I don't know. I think this is a positive.
It's a positive note. It's a fun note.
We talked about. I don't even have the notes. I don't know what.
I'll send them.
I want to say if it's positive or negative as well.
Much. Okay, you want to say if it's positive or negative before we release, or I say what it is? Click that link on Twitter.
Just say it.
Okay, it's Kaze to Rare Atom. Is that a positive or a negative?
Ooh. It's positive for Kaze because he's playing Counter-Strike. So
yeah.
I think it's cool. I actually think it's cool. You know, like teams now, Summer, Somebody, Kaze, Ahung, and Child King. So you got a few OGs back in that roster. And if you remember, Summer and Kaze used to play together back on Flash Gaming back in the day.
Yes.
Kaze at his peak, right? So I don't hate it. Like, I don't think this is going to be a team that is going to set the world on fire necessarily. But they've been doing some pretty good work, and it seems like the investment from Rare Atom is there. Like, they've been boot camping and doing this and that, and you know, they I think are on the right direction again, in the sense that obviously they had that experiment with international players for like 6 months or so, and I actually almost could see that working if you would have had, you know, some players like Kaze, for example, who actually spoke a bit better English. But it didn't seem to work in that team. So just reset, go back to the Chinese core, you know, and look, Somebody, Kaze, we all know they're good players. They have been good players in the past. Are they past their prime? Probably yes. But it doesn't hurt to have this team still kicking around in China and competing in these Asia qualifiers. I don't think they're going to be up there with Lin Vision or with Tai Lu. but I think they're a good team to have around for sure.
I'll tell you what I'm keen for. Kaze not getting micromanaged and Kaze being able to do what he wants. I'm assuming he's not going to get microed in this team, but
No,
he could.
absolutely
He
not.
certainly could. But yeah, if he's allowed to just be flashy, run around, do what he wants, maybe he gets unleashed a little bit more. Because yeah, that was the thing about Tyloo, how it was for a while. It was so stagnant, and it was just like one man's brain telling people to do stuff. But the way that it works these days is fucking protocols, except for, you know, Navi sometimes, but usually it's all protocol based, right? Like it's like this happens, all right, let's do this, let's rotate here, let's stand here, let's use this utility and fucking help one another out.
It
But
could be, yeah.
trying to Asia CS in general has struggled with that. Above the there's like the top 3 teams, they're usually pretty decent. The fact I'm so speechless still when LinVision gave that interview at Pro League, the first one this year, and they were like, yeah, we just learned how to mid-round call. Is that when they had that fucking interview? Bro, that killed me. That killed me so much. I was like, insane. Are you serious, bro? What do you mean? And that just goes to show everyone under that, when I'm watching ESL Challenger League, I just like take that interview and I'm like, this makes sense now. Like why people are running around like headless chooks, and if it goes to a map that they haven't practiced because they've been together for like 2 months or 3 months, they'll just run around and not use fucking utility. And I'm like, How are you in the top Asian league right now and you can't throw a house smoke on Ancient? And the map's been out for like over a year, you know?
That's actually insane.
Yeah, but to be fair, that was like one of the bottom teams. That was like one of like the...
That was a mid team. It was like fucking... It was Cube or something, bro.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Cube or one of the Mongolian teams. But...
This reminds me of the Jame interview. It's getting violent, guys. This reminds me of the Jame interview. It was like, even on the tier 1 level, just play like, you know, face it level 10. I don't agree with that, like, necessarily when it comes to like team play, but I'll say this, just playing some Ancient CS where playing Ancient, like, the very map in which Max said, T-Sun, all right, can someone smoke house? And no one knew the spawn smoke, which is fine, right? But everyone should know like a basic lineup or something. We're not playing like a competitive game. We're just playing face it pugs.
Yeah.
Dude, no one knew the fucking red smoke. Dude, no one. I'm talking about like a couple of guys like top 1,000 players in Asia. I'm like, what the actual fuck is going on? So yeah, I think sometimes we kind of hold them to a much higher standard than they really are. But with Rare Adam, I don't think we do. I don't think we don't necessarily hold them to that standard. Just finished a boot camp right now, right? In Serbia, and Yanko's boot camp, really nice boot camp, by the way. And so a photo where Kaze was there. So I think they were boot camping with their 5th player who they removed for Kaze, who is, let me quickly take a look here. I think it is Risk. He was the opera, and I won't lie, his numbers are kind of very, very mid. And I think they flew in Kaze at the very end. Because here's the thing for a lot of the Chinese orgs right now. I'm talking about Tyloo, I'm talking about Rare Ad, I'm talking about LinVision. The season's going to start. They're not going to be making any more changes now. This is kind of the lock-in lineups that they have leading into to Shanghai, leading to the Asian qualifier, because there is an RMR, there's a qualifier happening for Asia as opposed to EU and for Americas, right? This is the one shot they have. So I feel like that's why some of the roster changes have been a little bit rushed, I feel, but they're going to stick with it. I think the big question mark for me still right now is for Tyloo is, are they going to be picking up Starry from LinVision? I don't know, because the contract is running out for LinVision, for Starry and LinVision. I believe it runs out in July or early August. But apart from that potential lineup change, this is going to be the lineup. So they're going with Kaze, like, this is the best bet we have to make it to playoffs. They're boot camping right now, looking at the results, even with their previous player. You know, they were getting a few wins. Yes, it's online, but, you know, a couple of wins against teams like Sinners, for example, you know, known tier 2 teams in the area. So it's not like they can't compete. But do I think they're going to make it to the Asian RMR? I don't know about you, Mag. I doubt it.
Well, it's good signs that they went and had a little, you know, EU boot camp. That did it for Mongolz. It sort of took them to the next level before, was it Pro League? I think they did boot camp, then went Pro League, then went really well. Like, and it was the same as FlyQuest, right? Like, this is just another, it's not a tangent, but it's a like example. FlyQuest had a nice EU boot camp. They went to Pro League and they started to do some stuff. Then they had to come back to Australia after, I think it was just after that, they came back to Australia, did nothing for 2 weeks, couldn't really get fucking prac, whatever it was. Then went to Dallas and then bombed out because they weren't in Europe and they weren't playing European teams and they were playing like level 10 face it pugs, and that was like their prac. So,
I mean, is it even just
like this kind of thing is really, really, really important?
even just like the prac that they get against, also even the fact that they get bugs. Like when we're looking at look at how many games the Mongolz players are like grinding in stuff. Like they are at the top of those leaderboards when they're over in Europe, pretty much. And like Mizzino and Senzu are the ones that are like just fucking number 1 and number 2 like every time. And it's these kids are just like they're putting in the hours, they're getting the reps. Like it's not even just so much about how much team prac you're getting. I think it's about individual prac as well that maybe do. So yeah, obviously a lot of factors in there. It's good to see Rare Adam with that investment. I think you're right in saying that. Is this team going to make it to the major? That would be a real outside bet. Can they make it to the RMR? I think there's a chance. You know, who knows really what's going on with Envision at the moment. If there's 2 Chinese slots, I could see them potentially nabbing one. We don't know how good this new Tyloo roster is going to be either. I think Chinese Counter-Strike at the moment is very, very in flux. So we kind of actually have to wait and see where we're going to sort of all land after maybe the next probably like 2 months or so before we can really give an informed opinion on which of these Chinese teams is going to come together. But at the moment, there's the big 3 are probably Tyloo, Linvision, and Rare Adam. Don't really know what's happening with New Happy. I don't think New Happy still exists.
They
but
died.
I may be wrong.
I think
they did, but
apart a little bit.
I think they've been pulled apart for peace. But I think there's a possibility. We'll have to see how they sort of mesh this.
I think, you know what would have been so good? If all these changes happened exactly like 7 or 8 months ago. You know what I mean? Not like going for these weird ass fucking experiments because, you know, picking up a couple of EU players with Chinese players who can't even speak English or can't properly together. I'm looking at these guys, Rare Adam, and even a couple of other teams in the past, Tyloo with some wacky moves as well. If all these moves had happened about 7-8 months ago and they kind of like solidified into lineups by the end of last year when CS2 was coming out, as it had just come out, I'm just saying, man, you know, I think China could have been pretty solid. I just don't think there's enough time for these teams to kind of marinate well to give a good dish come the Shanghai Major. But anyway, I'd hope to be wrong, but rarely am, Jordan.
I don't know. How good were Chinese teams on Dust 2? Because we got to remember that we got a whole new map pool going into second major of the year. And I remember them being decent. I, for some reason, remember Tyloo being okay on it.
I don't remember any team. Okay, if memory serves me right, any Chinese team, whenever they made it out to like EPL or whatever, even when Dust 2 was in the pool, it wasn't a map where I'd be like, oh yeah, they have a real shot of winning it. I don't. Right. Okay. They had some good aimers, but I'm always going to remember fucking somebody CT side B just pushing tunnels alone every single fucking round. It's still stuck in my head rent free 6 years later, man. Yeah, but the other thing that is like part of that is that a lot of the Asian teams would have overpass in their back pocket, and that's gone now. So it's just going to look a little bit different. Time to learn Vertigo, buddy, as much as I hate to say it.
What I will say about this Red Adam roster is I do feel like it's kind of like top 10 anime. You know, Kaze playing with somebody in summer. I mean, he's obviously played with summer again, but like, it's been a long time. So I think that's kind of cool.
It's not a top 10 anime crossover, Jordan. It's an anime that's been running for like 900 episodes. They've run out of ideas. They don't know what to do. There's still a bit of a fan base, a bunch of boomers, you know, who have a miserable domestic life, and they want to go back home from work, watch, you know, some little bit of comfort anime, and it's episode 75 of season 10, and it's an old characters bringing out from the dead. Dragon Ball called up, you know, they're back again, guys, and they're watching it. It's still garbage. But at least you have the nostalgia happen.
I think the sharpest player on that roster, by the way, is going to be Child King. He's going to be the star player.
Child King. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Okay. Cool.
I think it's 100. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's going to be Kaze. I think it's Kaze, and just because I'm wearing the Kaze Tyloo jersey, and actually, by the way, on that topic, what I will say is I am fucking glad that this means the last map that Kaze plays on HLTV will not be the map where he went 13-1 against M80, because that would have been his last game on HLTV if that was the end of his CS career. Right?
Yeah,
that would have been a pretty bad end. So at least he can run it back. Anyway, let's move on to the Aussie shores. Although I don't know, is this team going to end up in Australia or overseas? We have yet to hear really. But there is rumors, or I don't know, has it been confirmed? I'm not really sure at this point. I think HLTV branded it as rumors. Like the article that they put out was like, this is the rumored team under Talon, Azr, Hazard, Addict, Netic, plus an EU AWP, which is an interesting prospect, an interesting project. We almost got my AU dream team there. We had Azr and Hazard, but I wanted Azr, Hazard, Gaza, Dexter, and Texter. But we didn't get that. So, you know, at least we got Azr and Hazard together. Although you have to look at this roster and think, okay, this first of all means BNK is dead, or at least the iteration of BNK that we know it is dead, because Azr and Addict are two very key pieces of that team. That if you take them out, sure, you can probably replace them, but first of all, they're kind of like still trying to figure out what's happening without PZ. It didn't seem like it was going too well. You know, who are they going to get? So as far as I know, it's now Brace, Damio.
I've seen a few more names floating around in there.
If I had to guess,
I'll leave that under.
Can I guess? APOC Dud, your Wombat, probably sliding back in there. Wouldn't be too surprised. But who knows? Yeah. Look, we'll see. For mine, though, I think it really doesn't matter at this point what happens for BNK. That team, the stock of that team drops pretty substantially when Azr and Addict move on.
What about if this part, like, what about the stock of Rooster without fucking Netic, bro?
Well, yeah. I mean, let's get into that in a bit, because I want to talk about
me in that lineup.
I want to talk about this Talon team first. I know there's been discussions around it. You know, people are obviously questioning, like, oh, okay, first of all, who's the fifth going to be? That's, I think, a big focal point. But I actually don't hate the route that they're going by trying to go and look for someone outside of AU. You know, we've had this conversation quite a lot when it's come to FlyQuest, where people are like, oh, well, you should replace Alistair. It's like, well, who would you replace Alistair with? Like, you could take anyone from the AU scene right now, ANZ scene. Who is better? I don't really think there is anyone better right now than Alistair to put into that team, unless you would go and find someone from overseas. So
what's Sicko doing?
Is Sicko going to be a better AWPer than Ali?
I mean, it's been too long though, right?
In that team?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He's also stylistically completely different to Ali. It depends on what your team theory is and shit. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
but like,
I just want to touch on...
I don't hate the idea, but Mac, the thing is, like, at that point, again, you're just recycling old players. And is that really going to push the issue? Like, is that really going to push the bar? I don't think it does. Okay, yeah, you can argue you're recycling old players in the sense that Az has been around for a very, very long time. But the other three, like Hazard, Atticus, and Netic, I think are still kind of this, like, quote-unquote, newer generation of CS players that haven't quite yet really had the chance to, like, properly try to push the bar internationally. And yeah, they've played internationally on different teams and stuff like that. But if they would be put together in a team under an in-game leader like Azr, has a lot of experience, with an organization that's going to support them and move them to Europe, or have them live in Europe on a more consistent basis, that prospect excites me a lot more than if you would build a team which was like, you know, fucking Azr, Sicko, Hatz, fucking, you know, who else can we pull out of retirement? Malta, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think you've seen those players, you know what they're going to deliver. Let's try and get some new guys in and have one or two of the older guard there, sure. But I like the idea of going and having a look for someone from, you know, international shores as far as an APPRAOCHES is concerned, because I think that could be a pretty exciting team, personally. Now, there is the conversation about, you know, is Azr washed as fuck? Has he been out of the game for too long? You know, does he even know what he's doing at this point? I think people rightly are able to ask that question, but you can't make any kind of assumption until you see what this team is like on the server, right? People will talk about how Azr played in, was it Spirit for 6 months, but I just don't even buy that as being a conversation point.
Dude, but
he was so team was dying anyway. Though. Like, whatever, dude. Like, fuck it. Like, that was 6 months. He didn't even really get the chance to come back to speed, I don't think. But
Sprout, not Sprout.
Sprout, sorry. I always get the two mixed. But, you know, run it back. I will give him 6 to 12 months and say, you know he's a great player. We have seen he is one of the best players Australia has ever produced. So why not see what he can do with this team? If it doesn't work, you know, after 12 months, you go and look for another in-game leader internationally. But I think he is worth a chance at least now.
He has been like grinding like non-stop on Face and over in EU, right? Like playing with Justin and Chad as well. So he's been trying to get into it. Yeah, like a full-fledged 5-star with Harry Russell as well. And yeah, he's trying to, you know, at least individually get back into it. And we all know, I agree with you, Jordan, as well. Like, you know, this lineup, you know, if they get a decent APPRA, it might not necessarily excite me, but it's not something where I'm like, oh shit, why are they doing this? No, this makes sense. You know, as a team, I like some of the names we're seeing over here. I think it can make sense. Also, it's interesting as well, you know, for Talon Esports. Last time I remember them was when they played 2017, 18, some of these Taiwanese players, right? And again, it's funny how a lot of these Asian orgs who were there once upon a time with the Asian major coming up, they're all right, guys, trying to pick up an APAC team. And I'm all for it. If that's going to bring us teams like this, which isn't like NKT, right, where they completely wash the players, but a team that can actually potentially, hopefully, do some damage, that's great. So yeah, all for it. I'm all for it. I might have my reservations, but still I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, I think it's good. You know, the likes of Addict and Hazza getting put into that roster, if this rumor is true, is good. You know, they are pretty intelligent players.
Just by the way, I think it is.
You think it is? Okay.
I
hadn't seen
from what I've heard. I think this team.
Until you sent me this list, I hadn't seen this list and this rumor.
Really?
I'm pretty confident that this team is happening.
I think I saw in my Twitter feed like Azr to lead a new Talon roster, and I didn't click on it. I just saw it. I was like, oh,
no,
cool.
From my understanding, we've already seen apparently BNK has been playing without Addict and Hazza, and obviously, you know, I've heard things about Nedic as well. So I think the rumors that I'm hearing are very positive that this team is happening.
Have you heard anything
I'm most
about
excited for is Nedic under someone else and seeing how he plays in a different roster, because he's only played for Rooster.
Well, we can talk about the Rooster stuff as well in a second. Actually, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Do you have any idea who about rumors about the Opta Jordan? Or
I don't. I think I saw a couple of names that were thrown out, but I can't remember who they were. They weren't like the names that would go, oh yeah, fuck yeah, get him. You know what I mean? Like I think they're like very much on that like tier 2. I mean, maybe like fuck it, why not? You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it was very much like of the tier 2 variety, and that it wasn't like a household name. But again, I don't think that there's been any kind of lock-in as far as I...
Hades, that's what they mentioned.
Was Hades, because I heard Sponge and the boys talking about that on the podcast, but they were saying he would potentially go to Liquid. I don't know who's going to end up where, because he's a very good AWPer.
He is very solid, yeah. Did he bench himself from... did he bench himself? I forget, from ENZ. I'm not too sure what happened there, but yeah, he was the win condition for ENZ when they had that like kind of decent run at the beginning of the year. So yeah, Hades would be great, but let's see.
What else I think is interesting is, as far as I understand about this Talon roster, Nedic's going to be the one that's kind of like put into his roles, if that makes sense. So they're kind of putting a lot of onus on Nedic to perform, which doesn't, you know, that makes a lot of sense, right? Given how he was playing in Rooster, if you can kind of unlock or continue to unlock that version of Nedic, you know, I think he's very, very much kind of the player that I think people should be excited to watch at the moment. You know, are you going to go ahead and say he's like the next international superstar coming through from ANZ? It's too early to really say. You have to see him perform internationally at this point. But you know, if anyone's going to do it, currently, right now, form-wise, it would probably be Nedic. So I think that's a good decision, and really just have to wait and see who that 5th player is going to be in this team. And how I think the other thing is, first of all, who's the AWP? How's Nedic's form going to go? And how is Azr going to stay up to date or catch up with Counter-Strike 2 as far as individual performances is concerned, and also, you know, strategically as an in-game, how is that going to work? Going to be able to slot in nicely. But I think it's a cool project. I guess the biggest question you have to ask is this now, because this will be a team that's built to try and go to the major, right? First of all, is this a team that qualifies to the Asia RMR through AU? Yeah. If there's 2 slots, yes.
If there's one slot, yes. Yeah.
If there's 1 slot, do they beat FlyQuest?
No.
I don't know that they do necessarily.
We'll get 2 slots, by the way, with where everything is currently.
As far as I know, yeah, we're probably getting 2 slots. So would this team beat Rooster with Rooster not having Nedic? Maybe.
I'd say so, man.
Maybe. It's hard to say. Like, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So
that's the main thing. It is hard to say, but yeah, there will be 2 slots. I remember there was a conversation on Twitter, someone asking why we didn't have 2 slots last time, and I went through it and checked the stats.
It was traffic Tashkent
last time because of the IESF Valve rankings or whatever, and that Kazakhstani team or
traffic Tashkent.
Traffic Tashkent.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah. They were above FlyQuest, so they were
4th,
slots.
yeah.
Like that. And yeah, this time we should, like, with all the international results we've had from FlyQuest, that should lock in an 2 slot for the second major. Yeah.
That was what we were saying back in the day. We were saying, look, the system is only fucked right now because there hasn't been enough tournaments. But once there's enough tournaments, actually the system will kind of work. And it seems.
Yeah. Quick question. I'm not sure about this, but like for the major, the Shanghai major, the OCE. The closed qualifiers. I mean, I don't think there's any direct invite, right? You have to play the open, correct?
There's 2. Yeah, there's some teams get invited to closed. I think it's top 2 get invited to closed, and then the others are coming through open. Let me check on. It shouldn't be too far back on Perfect Odds Twitter, right?
Okay, yeah.
The thing is, I don't think it really matters. Like, teams that like the good enough team, if they're good enough, which they are, they will easily blitz through.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the dates. Or like that doesn't make too much of a difference. So open quals for Oceania is 23rd to 24th of August, and the closed is on the 27th, just like a couple of days later, right? So
Not a lot of time.
Today's the 3rd of July, so they have about a month and a half. Assuming they've already found their fifth, by the way, to kind of coalesce together. So it's not a lot of time, boys. You know, not a lot of times.
That's hectic.
That is true. That could really make or break this team.
To the 30th, Pro League starts 2 days after that. So if like FlyQuest are highest ranked, they go straight to the Asia RMR, so they don't have to play close qual. But Rooster, who is the second team who qualified for Pro League, will have to play in the open or the closed qualifier. So they'll have to play for like a whole week and a bit, and then get on the plane and arrive in Malta on bloody media day.
Three highest rated like teams for the Asian RMR based on the Valve rankings. It has to be the Mongolz. It has to be FlyQuest, right? Like,
yes,
has to be. Which is the third team?
I think it's probably Linvision at the moment. Are you talking about right now?
I mean, yeah, sure, right now.
Or
Asian that's happening all the way now. No, but remember the cutoff for the rankings happens way early.
Right. Well, right now it's Mongolz, FlyQuest, Linvision, Atox, Rooster, top 5.
Okay, so it has to be Linvision making it.
And then God's Reign number 6, which is fucking cap, but
it's kind of fucking wild. But that means Linvision should be the one making it through. So it should be FlyQuest, Mongolz, and Linvision in the Asian RMR already pre-invited. So yeah, it's a real opportunity here for our boys, for Talon to make it through. But again, you have exactly a month and a half, assuming you have your opera ready to be up to speed to go up against Rooster and everyone.
Yeah.
And if there are 2 slots, will there be 2 slots? They can, right? If there are 2 slots, not counting FlyQuest.
No, sorry, 2 slots including FlyQuest.
Including FlyQuest, yeah. Okay, so just a 1 spot. So it's not a lot of time. I won't lie. Even with the caliber of players you have.
That's exactly it. That's what I'm going to say, because I think now it's probably a relevant time for us to actually talk about the Rooster change as well. Because as far as I understand, again, rumors, nothing confirmed, no announcements, nothing. But Hatz to Rooster is the change that's happening. So Hatz to replace Netic. And then from what I've heard, I don't know if this is a leak or not, but TJP is now going to be the in-game leader of Rooster. And Chelsea's going back to being the APPRA. So this will be interesting. This will be an interesting time. Lots of changes for the Rooster roster. But at least as far as Hatz to Rooster is concerned, and I said this when we talked about Hatz going to play in BNK, which didn't last very long. But I do think Hatz genuinely is a good pickup for any team at the moment. People are going to look at him and go, fuck, he's washed. He's an old guy. Like, he's been around ages ago, whatever. He's had his time. But I don't know what it is. But eye test wise, when I watch Hatz playing, doesn't matter how long it's been, he comes back into the server and the guy fucking farms. Okay, he's farming Aussie teams, so that's fair enough, whatever. But you can see that he has a little bit of this like level of class that other players haven't got, or at least this ability that he can just come back in and look good and perform in a tier one ANZ team without any difficulty. So, if you're looking at just finding a replacement for someone quickly, I think Hatz is a great player to sort of slot in. So I don't hate that as a change, and I would, again, and I said the same thing about him when he was in BNK, I would really love to see him stick around and actually see what he would be able to do over a longer period, because every time we've seen him come back, like whether it was the Encore roster or BNK or whatever, it's only been for like 2 or 3 months, and it's like, well, this doesn't really fucking show us. Like, you could just have a good honeymoon period, play a couple of good maps, and we go, oh yeah, Hatz is really good. But I'd like to see him in this roster for at least 6 months, maybe 12. Maybe they qualify for the Asia RMR. He gets to go and play internationally again. And then we really get to go, oh yeah, Hatz actually is still good. Or, maybe he's washed or whatever. But either way, I think he's good enough to be in this roster. I don't hate that change at all.
Fair.
I don't have a lot to say on it. I just know that, Hatz, every time he comes back, plays pretty good. And he's one of the best players in the region. Always has been. So I hope he does come back and keeps playing. He thinks he's getting older, but I don't think he's getting that old.
How old is he? He's like only like 25 or 26.
Yeah, but I don't know. He probably had someone say to him, bro, you're getting old, man. And then he just thought he was old. I don't think he's old.
He's 26. He's 26. So if you're 26, I think you've still got some legs in you.
bloody, like, you're not old.
26 with
player.
the amount of experience and how much time he's spent overseas and in top teams in Australia, mate. You're still young. Still bloody young.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Mac. Where do you actually think this Talon team ends up? Are they going to qualify for the Asia RMR over Rooster, BNK? Just to put you in the hot seat. Let's say they get a decent org.
Depending on who they get as the
not
org.
some shitter.
Let's say they get
Decent.
Hades. Let's say they get Hades. Let's just say they get Hades. Don't know how they'd get it, but if they do, there is a world where they definitely qualify. And I know Azr is extremely smart. I know everyone else that's been picked up on that team are very fucking good players. So it'll just depend on, role-wise, who's doing what and how they all sort of play together. I'm sure they'll be fine. Like, they're all such good players, and every single one of them are generally really good to sort of hang around and talk to as humans, which makes me think that they'll probably have some solid communication in the team. They've all got a large pool of experience now. So it could add up. It could definitely add up. And especially if, Rooster can have some things go wrong that don't make sense. Like if TJ's calling and then TJ's having a bad day, or someone says something he doesn't like, then he goes mute. Like, yeah, I can see it happening. I can see it happening for sure.
I would love the Hades change to happen. I mean, if he does get an offer from Liquid, he takes that, right? Like, I don't think I have to think too much about that. But if he doesn't get that, if that doesn't happen for Hades, from Hades' perspective, right? I think he's going to be teamless right now. He joins this team. He realizes there's a real chance of making it click, making it Asian RMR, and getting his sticker money as well. I mean, I can see why Hades would potentially join this team as well. Also, he's played under some very, very good IGL, some of the best we've had as well. Talking about Glaive and Snacks and everyone in the this guy Snappy, right, over in ANZ as well. So him joining in, I think, would be really beneficial for the team. But again, if you get a call from Liquid, you take it. 100%.
All right, Bleh. Is Talon the FlyQuest killer?
You're a fucking idiot.
What the fuck was that?
Are they the FlyQuest killer?
I know you want to get like some hot take from me from this.
Yeah, I do. I want you to say something.
Not right now. No, I don't even know the full lineup, dude. I can't call them a FlyQuest killer. Fuck no.
All right, sweet.
No.
Yeah, no. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm gonna fucking make the title of the episode "The FlyQuest Killers Have Arrived" or something like that, and everyone's gonna click on it. It's gonna be amazing.
Ass.
The Mongolz are dead. New friendship ended with Mongolz. My new best friend is Talon Esports. Something like that. All right, well, that's the end of the episode. It was a short one. Like we said, not much to talk about. Play break. I do need help. Help me.
We all need help. Better help.
More real than you can think about it. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, sponsor us. Buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy if you'd like to. And that's about it. So I guess we'll catch you in episode 63. Mwah! Hey guys, just at the end of this video, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Jean, who is my first supporter on buymeacoffee.com. If you'd also like to support me financially or any of my content, make sure to check out the link. It is in the description box below.